First things first, I want to actually start by saying there's actually nothing wrong with wanting a checklist timeline or goal. The problem with most checklist timelines and goals is that most of these are just based on programming. That's the problem with it. We're mindlessly moving through these checklists, right? And so most of them are based on programming, cultural expectations, societal pressures, projections from your own family wounds, right? Your mom projecting her shit on you, her expectations, her stuff, the things that she didn't get to have, the things that she feels like a failure about. So now she feels like you got to do that because if you don't, then she feels like she's doubling her sense of failure. You know what I mean? Like, oh, well, I feel like a failure because I didn't get to do something by 30. And so now I want you to do that by 30. Right. And it's like, dude, that's your shit. Just because you felt like you feel like a failure because you didn't do that by 30, like, don't put that on me. I don't feel like a failure because I don't even care about that. And that's where we have to learn how to think for ourselves. That's the problem with most of these checklist timelines and goals because they're just based on those things: programming, cultural expectations, societal pressures, projections from family wounds, and they are completely mindlessly arbitrary. The work to do around this is let's still create them. Let's still create milestones for ourselves. Let's still create goals for ourselves. There's nothing wrong with that, right? Like if you are overweight and your doctor literally says, hey, your blood pressure is pretty high right now, your body fat percentage is clocking in at 48%, you're not going to be like, oh, well, I don't believe in goals. Like, I'll just kind of see what happens. I'll just start moving a little bit more and see what happens. No, give yourself a goal. In 6 months, I'm going to carbon track for 6 months solid. I'm going to like stop drinking on Fridays and only drink on Saturdays for like the next 3 months and see what happens. And then I'm going to get another DEXA scan and then I'm going to see where I'm at. That's important, right? So the work is not to not have goals or a timeline. The work is in creating them from a place of personal alignment, from a place of meaningful, fun, playfulness, and non-attachment. Let's say you're like, okay, cool. Like I'm going to like set myself a goal to carbon track for the next 6 months. I'm only going to drink on Saturdays. I want to see my body fat percentage drop down by 5%, but maybe you don't know that that's actually not a realistic goal. So you go and get a DEXA scan and you're like, wow, I did everything right, but I actually only lost 3% body fat. Well, now I know that maybe it's not as easy as I thought. Now I know that maybe I actually need to do this for longer. It is clearly moving the needle, but maybe it actually took a lot longer than I realized. And then you go and do it for another 6 months, and then you go and get another DEXA scan, but this time you lost 7%. And then you get that new information there, and you're like, wow, well, I guess that expectation isn't really real either. It's just like maybe my body just needed some time to like get going. Maybe I needed to create some momentum. It doesn't even matter. It's working. And setting those goals and having those little checkpoints actually helped you get there, right? And now maybe you didn't lose the 20% you wanted, but then you lost 10%, and that's pretty rad. And you have evidence now that if you maintain this, as of right now, you're averaging about 10% a year. And so now you just use everything as information and just more ways to learn, and you continue to practice non-attachment. So with that said, what is a simple way to know how you're dealing with checklist timelines and goals? It's pretty simple. If your checklist timelines and goals start to stress you out, if it starts to bring out comparison mode, jealousy, anxiety, or any kind of pressure, it's probably time for you to reflect on these so-called checklist timelines and goals. People with control issues feel the need to maintain power over every aspect of their life. And so if you want to maintain some kind of power over every aspect, whether it's career, parenting, relationships, you start to create all these arbitrary timelines. You start to create these checklists. You start to create these like checkpoints, milestones, KPIs, like whatever. And this ultimately stems from fear that things will fall apart. And so that's why we have to hold on to these checklists. Well, if I don't have this checklist, then what if things will fall apart? If I don't have this goal, if I don't meet this thing, if I don't get this by a certain age, I'm afraid that I'm a failure. I'm afraid that like people will judge me and so forth. So you see how it all ties back to the control stuff. And so needing a high level of control, aka attachments to timelines, checklists, and goals, is really ultimately just self-sabotage, because all it does is just create more stress and anxiety. Because you can't control everything. Even if you create a checklist, even if you create a goal, even if you create a timeline, like you still can't control everything. Yeah, I've got all kinds of goals. But if I tried to fit my way into that, you know how much more stress I would have? You know how many more doctors I'd have to see to like reverse all these like stress symptoms that I've given myself over the last few years, my hair falling out, my skin breaking out, and like I'd be in like, yeah, okay, that's great. Like I'm making more money, but now I'm like dumping it all back, now looking for wizards to fix everything that like got me this money via the way of dumpster fires anyway. So you see what I'm trying to say? This is what we do, right? We're trying to control, we try to just hold on to these arbitrary checklists, and then all it does is just perpetuate more stress and anxiety. It's just, and the thing is like, and you did that by the way of willing it when, sometimes you just gotta let things happen the way that they're supposed to. Yeah, just because you want things done a certain way doesn't mean that that's what nature wants to do in this timeline. So again, checklist timelines goals are often a way that we just manifest our control issues. So why are we like this? Low self-love leads with fear. This is why we do the work. Fear wants to control, and then control gives a false sense of security. So when you have low self-love, right? When you don't fully trust yourself, when you don't fully love yourself, you lead with fear, aka fear of rejection, fear of abandonment, fear of judgment, etc. So then it wants to control that, and then that starts to create these dumbass checklists, timelines, and goals, and then that somehow gives you a false sense of security. But when it's really just kind of putting you on a hamster wheel and creating more anxiety and so forth. A couple of signs you are attached to timelines and goals. Honestly, y'all, I could have done like 5,000 slides of this. So I kept this really, really just to one slide. But I mean, it's endless, right? Signs you're attached to timelines and goals. I mean, AKA like how you literally do anything and everything that isn't with absolute intention and mindfulness is probably like stemming from a place of your attachment of timelines, checklists, and goals, because we're so unconscious of so many things. But let's just start with a few things that kind of came to mind right out the gate. You compare yourself to others at your fill in the blank. You compare yourself to others that are your age, that are from your city, that are from your old high school, that are your ethnicity, that are from your church, that are from your daycare, from, whatever, your alma mater, like your city, your hometown, your culture, like your industry, your last company, you name it. The comparison mode already right out the gate. It's like, if you are not attached to checklist timelines and goals, you literally don't care. Why? Because you just see yourself as your own individual person on your own individual path, on your own individual conscious career life journey. And it literally is useless for you to even compare yourself to anybody else, because like you're only comparing that because you somehow think that you should be somehow following alongside somebody in some way. But like, what does it matter if you like literally never do something that this other person does by a certain age? What does that even matter? And so that might just be a attachment for you. I'm definitely guilty of comparing myself to others my age, but that's such a broad losing category to place myself in. It's like literally like there's so many factors, right? There are so many factors, like me at my age, right? And a million other people my age, like they're literally coming from so many different backgrounds and parental, the way that they were raised and what kind of school they went to and what culture they grew up in, what food they ate. It's actually a losing, useless endeavor for you to compare yourself to anyone, but like also like something as broad as an age. Oh my God. That's like so unfair to yourself. So with that said, you go down rabbit holes, stalking people you know from your past. You want your exes to see you living good, eating good, traveling good, having a good time, living your best life, doing so good. You mindlessly save money for someday you'll get to do something big, buy a house, etc. You believe in an ideal state of being that is far from your current self. Let me elaborate on this real fast, okay? Because I feel like when we are so attached to timelines, checklists, and goals, we have this like pining for this like version of us that's kind of like really far and distant and maybe never even attainable. So like, for example, one day you're like single, you're not even dating, you don't even got a man, but you're like worried about getting Zika in Tulum because you might get pregnant this year. by some dude that doesn't even exist yet. That is like the perfect example, right? Like you believe in this like ideal state and it's like so far from your current self. And it's like, wow, like think about that, right? Instead of being present and focusing on what you can control now, instead of being present and enjoying your life now and working on your best self now, you constantly beat yourself up that somehow you haven't figured out your path and that you're not 20 pounds lighter and that you're not like this glorious, like hot, elusive being version of yourself that one day you want to be. Instead of just trying to be the best version of what you can with what you have right now, you got to work with what you got. You feel disappointed or triggered when things don't happen the way you want. And this can be small things, big things, it can be anything. You feel disappointed and triggered when things don't happen when you want. I think a lot of us are attached to both of these very deeply, intricately. The outcome doesn't happen the way that you wanted, AKA a rejection, AKA or you're late, something doesn't happen, it's the wrong gift, it's the, I don't know, whatever, it's the wrong number, it's not the title you wanted, da 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 da. And it's also when. So you thought you'd have a new job by January. You thought you might be married by 30. What? By the way, like, do you hear how ridiculous that sounds? Like you can just find someone to commit to you forever for the rest of your life by a certain age. Think about what a tall order that is. Like, just come on, y'all, right? Being married by a certain age, that is a ridiculous goal to have. That requires another person. That requires, love and shit. Think about that, right? You're like mad that like you are not married by the time you're 30. Do you understand how many moving parts it requires for something like that to happen? You think those who have achieved things sooner than you are better. Look at how ridiculous this is. So think about how many of us are attached to this. So-and-so got this title by the time they were this, so they're better. And it's like, how many of those arbitrary things have you all been attached to? So-and-so made their first million by the time they were 30. Look at me, I'm such a loser because I'm still chasing my first six figures. To me, the way that I see it, it's like you literally looked out at the universe and you like threw a dart and it landed at some random spot, and that random spot has a completely different like situation than you, and now you compare yourself to it and go, wow, that thing is better than me. And it's like, what? Like the chances of like somebody else that's completely different than you having this kind of outcome by this kind of age, it's like there are literally hundreds, thousands, millions maybe of factors that cause that outcome to happen to this person at this age, and you are trying to compare yourself to that. That is just such a losing way of thinking. You feel pressured to complete certain things by a certain age. Obviously, a lot of us have this. You feel pressure to complete certain things before your parents die. What is one thing that you feel pressure to complete before your parents die? You might not be able to answer this question right now, and maybe some of y'all might think like, oh, like I can't really think of anything right now, but it was a very, very like, just kind of sudden question to ask. But there are probably things that you feel pressured to complete before they die, whether you realize it or not. Even though you might not consciously think like, oh, whatever, like I don't care, like I don't feel pressured to do anything before my parents die. You might still be driven in your own way to accomplish something, to have something, to do something. Because even if you don't feel like you have to give them anything, there still might be a part of you that still feels like a pressure to succeed. It's still some kind of pressure to like have some kind of achievement because that programming is still there. You measure your life in all ways. There's just measurements happening all the time. Money, age, items, titles, ranks, passport stamps. People have arbitrary goals of how many countries they have to visit this year, every year before they die, whatever. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with any of these measurements per se. But again, it's your intention. Where are they coming from? What's really driving that? Why do you care? Why do you actually care about those things? Why does that matter? And I think those are more important things to think about. You think there's something wrong with you because you don't have blank, right? Because you don't have a certain title by a certain age, because you don't have children, because you're not married, whatever it is. How many times do we hear these conversations of like, oh my gosh, like this woman is like, she's beautiful, she's powerful, she makes X amount of money, like she's done all this. Why is she single? I don't know, because maybe she likes being single, right? But like you hear things like that all the time. Last but not least, you chase an image, full stop. You chase some kind of image, whether it's I want to be seen as being cool. I want to be seen as a leader. I want to be seen as rich. I want to be seen as well-traveled. I want you to be able to look at me and be able to say X, Y, and Z about me. And you chase that image. Not even necessarily on social media to the outside world. I mean that you chase that image just even for yourself. You feel like you chase like that you have to like be this person, and you kind of forget like, again, why? What does that even why does that even matter? Like, what would that mean for you, right? Like really digging deeper into the why you are chasing these things in the first place. And so think about how much you often get into something or buy something or sign up for something or agree to do something because at the end of the day, like you are chasing some kind of image. And again, there's nothing wrong with wanting to be healthy, fit, there's nothing wrong with wanting to look good. There's nothing wrong with those things, right? Like, of course, like I'm always on the quest for those things as well. What I'm talking about is something a little bit more sideways than that. I think when we are chasing a certain image because we are seeking, we are thirsting for a way that when another perceives us, I think that's when it gets a little dangerous. With that said, I'm going to leave you with this. What is the checklist, timelines, and goals that you were raised to believe in? Do you know why this is even the checklist? Like, have you ever even stopped to ask, why is this the checklist? Like, did you ever learn what those intentions were? Did they ever explain to you why this is the checklist? I don't think many of us have. And what did you learn about people who don't check those boxes? What did you learn that it means about them? Trust, you have this programming. You have this programming. What are the benefits of you checking off the boxes? Have you ever even learned? Who benefits and how? This is really important. Who benefits and how? Because something that I don't think gets talked about enough is a lot of these checklist timelines and goals were ultimately made way back in the day to benefit the person who made that rule in the first place. And so that's just something to think about. And then also I want you to think about what are some of the timelines, checklists, and goals that are hardest for you to let go? What are you afraid will happen if you don't meet them? And why do you feel the need to prove them in the first place? And then what are the ones that sound inspiring, fun, and aligned to you where you are right now, but you're okay with never experiencing that? And why are you okay with never experiencing that? My intention behind this question is to help you see that a lot of things are really just arbitrary. Even things that actually sound fun, it's okay if you never do that thing. It's okay. You're going to be fine. Like, it's okay if you never go to whatever, Burning Man. It's okay if you never, like, whatever, see Antarctica. But unless you go through that exercise, you won't know that you're actually okay with never doing X, Y, and Z. So this is also something that you have to exercise. You actually have to also exercise realizing that you're actually okay with not doing things. Are we following? I think it's important to actually exercise intentionally on purpose to actually think about what you're okay with not having. Because a lot of times when we do the work, we only talk about like, what do we want? What do we desire? Okay, now let it go. But we don't rarely actually intentionally on purpose say, here are some things that sound really fun, but I'm also okay with never experiencing this. And here is why. To actually dig deeper into that, I think would be a very, very enriching experience for you, because these are things that I've done myself.